If you visit the grocery store beside your house, almost everything that's sold there is probably made somewhere else outside your country. That yellow banana, fresh meat, milk, you name it. However, that wasn't the case all of the time. In fact, it was impossible just 70 years ago, because what happened then changed the course of the history. When you think of the great businessmen, the first people who come into the mind is Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. How about Rockefeller? Despite their great contributions, this guy had as much greater influence in the business world. Meet Malcolm McLean, because his invention literally created globalizations. And if it wasn't for him, the world wouldn't be a way we know it today, because he invented this box, shipping containers. Without this box, you would have that I found, or the wide varieties of the fruits in the store, or every your closest IKEA would be only in Sweden. Gucci in Italy and iPhone would have to be manufactured in the United States, which would have made them much more expensive than they are already, $1,000 price tags. Maybe that will make you feel good after throwing another grand on the iPhone. Most of the history shipping its goods around the world was expensive, risky, and time consuming, so only expensive goods were shipped to the elites. International trade was not even the options for the most businesses. Before the 1960s, shipping would spend as much time as the ports as they would in the sea, because landing and unloading goods from the ship there was the huge challenge. Trucks would get goods to the ships. The people would manually get them to the top of the ships. Just imagine the number of the people you need to do that. The ship cost was at all-time high. On the top of that, goods were often stolen. The ship's capacity was limited. All that made shipping only more expensive. The cargo ships, the SS Warrior, would carry merchandise from the Brooklyn, New York to Bremerhaven in Germany. On the trip, it would only carry a little over 5,000 tons of the cargo, from the food to household goods, letters, to vehicles. Some 200,000 items would be carried separately. The record keeping alone, tracking all those cargoes as they moved around the warehouses was a nightmare. But the real challenge was physically loading ships. There were longshoremen who were responsible for the job would pile barrels of oils and boxes of the soap, for example, into the wooden pan of the dock. The pallet would be lifted and loaded in the hold of the ship. From the more long shortman would carry each item into the every corner of the verses, then packing the cargo so it wouldn't shift when they are in the sea. This was far more dangerous work than the other work at all, including constructions. In a large port, some would be killed every other week. The ship would take 7 to 10 days to load and upload, which equals to the amount of the time it would take to cross the Atlantic Oceans. In total, the cargo would cost around 420 a ton to move, adjusted to inflations, and delays were quite typical, since the cargo needed to be distributed by loan when the whole journey might take 3 months. 70 years ago, shipping goods around the world was extremely expensive, but there had to be the better way that's more affordable and faster, right? That was the McLean said when He was waiting for days in his truck to load his goods to the ship. How about to put all the cargo in big standard boxes that would fit both in the trucks and the ships can move the boxes. That would make things a lot easier. But it wasn't as easy as it sounds because this idea wasn't new and it had been tried multiple times throughout decades, but it didn't catch out. The problem was the ports, shipping, and the trucking companies couldn't agree on universal standards. Some wanted smaller boxes, other bigger or shorter because every company wanted the boxes to suit its needs. And then there are the unions who resisted the idea at all costs. It might seem like everyone would welcome such an involvement since it would be make the job easier and safer, but it also meant fewer jobs. However, that didn't stop Malcolm McLean from the giving it a shot. He was a trucking entrepreneur and didn't really know how much about shipping, but he clearly imagined the steel boxes for the truck that would easily be loaded on the top of the ship. He spent the next 20 years saving money, planning, and finding ways to make it legally happen. And in April 26, 1956, he finally got the chance to realize the plan. He risked all of his savings, secures $22 million loan, and purchased SS Ideal X, a World War II oil tanker, and sailed from the Network, New Jersey to the Houston, Texas. The container was uploaded from the ship to the trucks where they were taken to their final destinations. The single journey changed the course of history. If had loading a ship cost 5.86 per ton, using containers it cost only 16 cents a ton to load the ship, 36 times cheaper. That was revolutions, but the biggest challenge was the time it spent on the port, landing and uploading. Were reduced from the 10 days to few hours, which mean fewer port expenses and more earnings because trucks make money when they are at the sea. Of course, unions were fiercely fighting against it, but Malcolm sold the idea of the container ships to the US military. There was the turning point. Everybody knew that is the future. With the war in Vietnam, it was the nightmare to ship equipment, so they used Malcolm idea. On the way back from Vietnam, his empty containers ship contained cargo from the world's fastest growing economy at that time, Japan, and that was being of the trans-Pacific trading relationships. You see, when it comes to the shipping, there is nothing else that would come even close of terms of cost. It's so cheap that it's even considered almost free, but the wars had to agree on the universal standards that would everyone use, and it became the 20-foot long container. You can fit 48,000 bananas in it, 400 flat screens TVs, 200 mattresses, 60 refrigerators, 4,000 shoes boxes, or 2 cars. That changed the entire business models of the industry. Shippings were no longer in the business of shipping goods. They got into the shipping boxes. It didn't really matter what these containers had inside. No one really checked them for or even care. They just relied on what the documents say. The changes was to move boxes from the point A to point B as fast as is efficient as possible. That's why we began building the bigger ships, so to the point where the biggest ships today can carry up to 21,000 containers, or 42,000 cars, or 8 million flat screen TV. It's 400 meters long. It's 5 times longer than the Being 747 8. Here's the questions for you. How many people do you think managed to ship the 21,000 containers? Believe it or not, 23 per people at the best. That's the massive reductions in the labor cost. However, not everything is the sunshine and the rainbows. Even though the US Navy has a big presence among everything that protects the ship from the possible attacks. Some places are quite vulnerable and the ships often face pirates. Sometimes they can take control over the entire ships is the separable businesses by itself. If you thought that the pirates were the long time things in the past, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. In fact, ship's crew often hire bodyguards to protect them, but why aren't we building even the bigger ships? How about the ship that would carry 5,000 containers? Even if it might be engineerably possible to build one, they will not be able to cross the tiniest canals in the world, the Panama Canal and connect the American Strait of the Malacca, which is the most important canal route in Asia, and the Suez Canal that connects Asia and Europe. They are the three tiny roads that connect the world. So, if the ships won't be able to cross the Panama Canal for insane, it will have to take the longer roads all around the South America. If they are longer than 78 meters, they won't fit in the Suez Canal, and will have to make it all across the South Atlantic Oceans. If you wasn't for this innovations, you would not have bananas, because the US gets its banana from the Guatemala, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Honduras. In 2010, these five countries shipped the estimated 3.9 million metric tons of the fresh bananas to the United States, according to the 94% of the total US bananas imports. With the trade war that's going to between the Uncle Sam and China, Apple can shift its productions to Taiwan to keep producing efforts. I can say it would be much more affordable, but not as expensive as it if they would manufacture in the United States. And that's all thanks to the little box that was invented 70 years ago by Malcolm McLean. And now it's your turn. First, give this video the thumbs up and let me know what do you think is going to be the next innovations, what's going to have as much influence on the world as is this steel box had. Thanks for watching, and until next time.